Hi, marketers. This is Dots, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. With me here is Oliver J.P. Osborne, founder/director at Allcool. We will discuss establishing brand leadership with events marketing. This is a topic I've been looking forward to discuss, so it's here, strapping. Welcome, Oliver. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Dots. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really an honor having you and dissecting this topic. But got some very personal questions to ask you. First one, it's about yourself, your background and role. Like, how was that whole journey like? Seems like you've got a bunch of interest, which is pretty cool.
Yes, it is not necessarily the clearest of set of points to draw lines between as far as my professional experience. But the lines are there, the connections are there. So I started, my first job at 16 years old was in a pizza kitchen. By 20, I was running a private members club. So that was my first leadership role, and that was over 21 years ago. And the majority of the work that I've done, both then and since then, centered around scaling and change management within organizations. So in that first role, I was able to get this club from losing, in today's money, probably about 8,000 Canadian dollars a week to breaking
Wow.
even with 4 months, and then from there onwards into profitability. And as I said, this is this looking at the real inner workings of any organization and looking to make it capable of doing more and doing better,
Mhm.
has really been at the core of everything I've done. Even when about 11 years ago, I transitioned into kind of specializing in marketing. Um, I've worked in or led teams rather in 12 different countries across 3 continents at this point, and have learned a great many lessons, sometimes the hard way.
I hope you're able to learn some from your experience, but I love the positive side, and we're speaking off camera about the prop at the back. If you're watching this podcast, you probably see that. But also, we have known this before because, of course, it's our job to stalk our guests. And while stalking, uh, learn a lot about your music background and how active you still are in that world. Is there a is there a way where music stimulates what you do in marketing? I mean, I'm not like an officially music person, I'm just the guy far away. And sometimes there's just that creativity that comes, marketing strategies in the toilet, for example, and things like that.
So there are at least two ways I can answer that question. One is that the first event I ever ran was a music event, um, when I was about 17, and it was quite an eye-opening experience to
Mm.
take a space that was otherwise unused and populate it with a few hundred people for several hours, and just be, kind of soak in the impacts that can have on people. Um, for me, the difference between events as a sector and then food and beverage and hospitality as a sector, for me, is purely about nomenclature. What you are trying to do in those instances is provide a set of tasks, but to have an impact upon the humans that come in as your guest. And so I think I got the bug for events through music. Um, the other answer to that question would be that if unless you're a very traditionally trained classical musician, you are often improvising, and I think that that kind of musical experience definitely primes you for being comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty, which I think um, sets you up quite nicely because the marketing is riddled with
Yeah.
uncertainties and
In fact, I
ambiguity
think
and being
I find myself at that side, the second side, where I'm very far away from a professional musician, but I love music. I don't take coffee. It's music. I told you about my TikTok thing.
Mhm.
I am an aspiring backup singer with no time to participate, and so on and so forth. There's just so much going on that side, and yeah, it's so much going on when you translate into marketing. It's so competitive too these days, and even in the part that we're about to discuss, it's getting competitive now that, we are sort of in the new normal, right? And it's no longer an issue to have events. So that makes a lot of sense there. Um, the question I was going to start with, while I was preparing for this, I think we should start with these questions. I have a feeling, Oliver, that in order to have some affinity for event marketing for the brand you manage, you should even be an attendee yourself at events. So should marketers attend marketing events to start with, or I guess any other corporate events?
Again, there's still going to give you two answers to this question. One is
I love it.
absolutely. I think that taking a proactive approach to the development of your own skill set, it certainly served me well.
Mm,
And the talented people I get to the pleasure of working with typically take this approach as well. So absolutely yes on that level. Um, but to turn it around slightly and or maybe expand it, it is important to put yourself in the shoes of your guests. And there are numerous ways to do this that will be essentially dictated by the nature of the events that you are trying to run. Um, but one of the processes that I've adopted over the years is walking through the space that I'm going to use, starting not from where that space starts, but from where someone would arrive at that location in order to get to the space. There is
mm,
nothing that is going to make a guest of an event turn up pretty annoyed than having to wander through a convention hall with no idea about where they're supposed to go. Okay.
yeah,
So as an example, starting at the taxi rank or starting at the car park and ensuring that the guest experience is being attended to at every step of the way, even before you get into the event space, is going to put you in a much better position to run fantastic events. And really, this ties back to, for me, a fundamental marketing principle, which is around market orientation.
mm.
You need to be thinking about things through the lens of the customer before you look at it any other way.
Hey there, if you're anything like me, have lots of website traffic, but no idea which ones are window shoppers and which are ready to seal the deal, then I've got a game changer for you. It's Lead Feeder. This is a tool I like using. And what it does is it shows you which companies are coming to your site. You can track their behavior and integrate it with your CRM, which will help take your lead generation efforts to make it more targeted. The result? Convert more website traffic into sales. Head over to leadfeeder.com now for a free demo, and you can also get a free extended premium trial when you let the rep know that you found out about Leadfeeder through the Marketing Leadership Podcast. All right, back to the show. Yeah, you're right. There's back in the day, I learned about the psychology of the doors, which says, instead of just saying, Oliver, buy now, buy tomorrow, or buy today, you walk them through one door at a time through the marketing orientation or brand orientation, and until they get to the point where they are supposed to be served, and that is increasingly becoming popular these days. Of course, it's outside the scope of this episode, but we'll be discussing with a lot of guests around how the concept of brand awareness coming back, and demand generation and things like that. And it's not really about direct marketing or in your face kind of marketing. And it's all good what we see. Still not as popular, but from even from a brand orientation perspective, events is one tactic that brands use. And some of the things we'll be speaking about here in terms of product launches and things like that are some of the things to really trash out. Were you going to say something?
I could say many things, but no, nothing in particular.
Yeah, no, I like the two ways to answer question that you'll be running with. So
Can't guarantee I'll stick to that through the course of the conversation, but it does happen that those first two, I had a couple of options.
oh God, let that happen. Okay, so now for the topic. When we speak to guests, some guests, we often ask them of how they do things from a strategic framework perspective. And like I just said, events is uh not just a tactic, but it's a revenue stream. It's a revenue acquisition stream. It's a revenue expansion stream. And it could be done virtually, it could be done in person. So till kingdom come, just gonna be that way. But for you, having first, of course, learn event marketing from a marketing perspective and then brought in some ideas from the music side, what is your typical process like? I am Amazon. I want to do an event. What are high level steps you're gonna walk me through?
Well, firstly, you want to get to the bottom of what the business or brand's current strategy is. And if they are smart, this will probably boil down to a small number of kind of measurable objectives,
Mhm.
along with a positioning, which is, again, a small number of things that they want to implant into the minds of either the entire market and or a specific segment. With these goals and this positioning in mind, you can then start to think forward to, okay, how do we achieve this within the confines of their budget, geographical location, maybe prevailing legal strictures as we, finally kind of extract ourselves, logistically and psychologically from the COVID era. So, and from here, there's a principle that comes up a lot when it comes to teaching that I think is basically common knowledge at this stage, that if you tell someone something, they'll retain 20% of it. If they repeat it back to you, they'll retain a certain percentage more. If they go through the actions of performing a particular activity themselves, they're much more likely to learn it. When
Yeah.
it comes to marketing, it seems that this kind of like common knowledge is entirely forgotten. But what your event does is potentially provide you with the best possible opportunity for you to imprint your brand position upon a segment of that is the segment that attends your event. Um, then to switch to a kind of tactical takeaway as well. Firstly, you're getting a lot of time with the individual versus what they would see, and how long they might experience an advert for. I mean, maybe 2 minutes for a big kind of pre-movie at the cinema type advert. But you really get some extended time with them. Another big tactical takeaway is the content you can generate from an event. So not only have you created a unique, hopefully very on brand, very on position event that helps push the ball forward towards your strategic objectives, you're also capturing social proof in real life. And so the content that's generated then is typically more cost effective to generate than getting in a studio with extras and actors, and simultaneously hammers home the social proof component. So,
Yeah.
so those are really the things I think about when I'm coming into exploring an event with a brand.
I like that. I like the last one you spoke about in terms of content distribution repurposing. It's something that people have been talking about a lot as well. And the fact that we have seen at Content Allies, we have seen companies use events to create podcast episodes, which is really amazing. Instead of having to record podcast, to just have panel discussions and make those individual episodes. And so on and so forth, really. But at the beginning, you also mentioned that thing about the impact of events from let me use the word brand immersion perspective, right? You based on that engagement, there is a stickiness that happens based on you might have an event for it's not as common, but you might have an event for your customers, for example, and trying to build customer loyalty in a certain way. That's something that people don't really invest so much in, but those who invest in it basically turn their customers to bring in other new customers.
Mhm.
And again, of course, there are all these other, lead-based events, open houses, or things like that. And they all have different engagement goals. Like you said at the very beginning, what are you trying to achieve? Who is your target audience? Um, how is all the logistics going to happen, and what do you intend to do with everything within the event? Yeah, of course, it's a lot of work. Tell me about it. Events, just managing this podcast alone, there's just so many moving parts. One podcast. But if done well, it's often an engine to create better customer experiences, and it's just really going to the basics. Again, now I would like to talk about leveraging events in different way from my marketing exposure perspective, and I'm looking at brands that want to advertise inside of event. Some of your answers may be well known to some may not, but it's okay if we are to really go over it. For the B2B marketers out there, you probably follow a certain Team Davidson that will go to events and hold cardboard placards and things like that. And sometimes it's chased out by security and things like that. Well, that is one way, but I'm talking about other ways in which, cost-effective ways in which brands can or should advertise inside events. Should brand do more in 2024 in advertising inside events? Should they do more in 2024 in even advertising inside communities that host events, not just full-scale events, but community-based events, which I would argue is more influential. So it is 2024. We don't have too much money. There's just a reset of the economy in the West, and we've got this
Mm.
little change. How can we use that change to advertise inside an event to still get ROI?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the state of the economy. It's important that any marketer understands what happens during a downturn, or even what looks like it could have been a downturn. Not so long ago, I had a chat with a senior economist at TD, and they assured me that their projections are uh, painting a picture of slow growth, but definitely not a downturn. Nonetheless, there's been a big pullback on spending, and still there's the inertia of a threat of recession mentality around spending. Now, what happens at a global level here? A great many companies will cut or reduce their marketing and advertising budgets. Now, for the people that do not, every dollar they spend goes further,
Mm.
because by comparison, they are louder for the same amount of resource outlay. So while I can't speak for everyone's strategic goals, I can safely say that in a climate of reduced events and reduced expenditure on marketing in general, um, the things that you do will go further. So I would urge everybody to attempt to, feel out those um, potential scenarios where events are a significant part, or not even a significant, but a meaningful part of their marketing mix. Because I think that for the reasons I stated earlier on, in that it is often a two-way conversation with you and the customer, in a way that social media claimed to give you that two-way communication. It's not really a two-way communication. You can physically have, you can have activities that will again embed your brand position and your brand identity into them. So everyone needs to make a decision for themselves, but you have to be aware that if the rest of your competition is getting quieter, every dollar you spend now goes further than in a a buoyant market.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I like what you mentioned there about the level of communication. As we all know, except if you have some funds, posting on social media gets you between 5% to 1% of reach. Maybe some platforms might be good to give you 10%. I don't know, but um, the reach is low organically, basically. So you just engaging with a small set of people that you have struggled to assemble together. But the good thing with events is that the people are there physically and there is that engagement. And you can do 100% if you like, if you have the mind to say go through 1,000 people, um, and so on and so forth. But the point really is the level of engagement is just awesome. And even though you may or may not be able to attribute immediately, some people talk about those things like that. There might be some other ways that you can use events as a means to get attribution for, say, position of a product or product adoption for the tech guys. And that is my next and last question. But before then, we have what we call the dots rapid fire. So, guys, um, first, I'd like to say something about the podcast. We look at topics that are very interesting that people rarely talk about, that may become relevant in some day because marketers move like waves. When something is trending, now it's AI. So don't say anything except AI. In fact, make your surname AI, dot AI instead of dot to able. But I know that event marketing is something that, for some of you out there might be very relevant. But this is how we do it on the podcast. Please help us by subscribing, help us by sharing, help us by reviewing. In fact, if you can't review it, but you can share, I would rather like the share because even if I can't track it, it's useful, more useful in real life than you ever think. Now, before I ask the last question and go to the dots rapid fire, we have a very quick commercial break from our sponsor, Content Allied. And when we come back, we will round off the episode in a fun way. So if you think we are done with all the fun, please don't leave, don't press skip. Just give us a few more minutes and you will enjoy the rest of it. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. So like I said, it's the dots rapid fire and it's 3 questions for Oliver. He says the truth and nothing but the truth. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do this. First question, what is your best marketing metric? And I don't want to hear sales or revenue.
Best marketing, again, very, very context dependent. I think more medium-sized brands should be doing panel surveys to gauge top-line awareness rather than just guessing it.
Panel surveys. Can you describe that a little bit more?
You shout out to Leger, who's the company that I use for my survey. So they maintain the database. You can go to them and say, which of these 10 chocolate bar brands have you heard of? And they'll send it out to a representative sample of the population so that you can scale it up. So you do a survey of 500 people, and you know that if 60% of them know about X, Y, and Z brand, that means that scale that up to the population of Ontario. What is that? 8.5 million people know that brand. You have an awareness of 60% for this brand within Ontario.
Makes sense.
Really inexpensive to do, and I think people wait to. This is the top of your funnel. And like awareness is table stakes for doing business with you. So, as soon as you get to the size where that makes sense, do it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. YouTube would run a brand recall survey if you can spend $40,000 a month. So it's a if I mean
You
forty
don't have to,
dollars.
you don't have to spend
Aha.
that.
So that makes a lot of sense, guys. Okay. Second question: how long do you use social media every day?
Ooh, I would probably say an hour a
Okay.
day, which is probably 40, maybe an hour and a half, maybe, yeah, probably 40 minutes on LinkedIn and then half an hour on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that Instagram is starting to grow in terms of B2B adoption. That I saw the statistics from Statistia or Statista, and I saw how, you know, almost like YouTube. YouTube is like you can get the D2C, you can follow the Mr. Beast, and you can follow the Dots or
Mm.
Oliver talking about marketing. Um, Instagram is starting to hit that as well, and that's something I've been thinking about as a distribution channel. I have issues with Instagram from a D2C perspective. It's just that I have a perfect life platform, but again, out of scope for this episode. So you've given me that proof that I need to start thinking about Instagram more and distributing some of my business content there. Okay. Last
Mm.
question. What is your favorite marketing quote?
Oh, this one comes from Peter Drucker. So this is a quote that I've used as kind of the thin end of the marketing best practice wedge when it comes to dealing with C-suite that aren't marketers. So Peter
Mm,
Drucker is a very famous marketing or business thinker, organizational business consultant, and academic, I think. And he
mm,
came up with the phrase, "What gets measured gets managed." Anyone in leadership knows that quote. What he also said is that marketing is not a specialized activity at all. It's much broader than that. It is, and I'm definitely butchering this, but it is the entire business seen through the lens of its final result, and that is from the customer's point of view.
mm. Yeah, yeah. That could be interpreted in a different way, which is the from a from a marketer's point of view. But I agree with your side more, because it's at the end of the day, the customer is king or queen anyway.
Well,
So
good marketers will start with what the market thinks anyway.
yeah, and follow the markets. Yeah, that's true. Last one, last one, last one. Speaking of good customers, speaking of you know, events, I know you've got a lot of experience with product launches. So before the break, I was talking about how you could actually have almost a correlated attribution to from events to revenue. I think product launches
Yeah.
it probably sits at the top, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But would you want to tell me about, I would say, the top three things that you've learned doing product launches? Like I said, again, could be for straight up adoption, could be for
Mhm.
acquisition. If iPhone 17 comes out, there'll be a queue at every iPhone store because there was some events that happened and things like that. What has been your own experience, and why should brands, especially at a certain scale, do some level of product launch?
Again, it would come back to understanding what the fundamental goals are. If the goal of your product launch is to shift a high volume of units on the day in a specific location, then your entire event plan will fall off this. Conversely, if your goal is to raise awareness about your brand around a specific date, then it becomes much more a spectacle and comms and content creation and repurposing play. So really getting to the bottom of what you or, often in my case, my client wants to achieve with their event,
Yeah.
I will set you up for success, because the last thing you want to do is get to event day and say, haven't I produced you this fantastic event? And for someone to say, well, actually, we wanted this, right? The sooner you get to the
Yeah.
bottom of what success looks like for your client, um, the better your event will be, and the more harmonious that relationship will be. Um, from there, you got to take that brief, and as I said, look at this from the customer's standpoint. Going back to my favorite quote, the Peter Drucker quote, looking at every part of that experience from the lens of the customer, right down to the simplest of things. I mean, I'm baffled at how many times when I go to pay for something with a credit card, where the merchant receipt comes out first. That is a operations centric decision, because you can toggle
Yeah.
it, right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
coded. That's an operations centric decision and not a customer centric decision,
Yeah.
right? I'm the customer who's trying to get out of there, right? Like, my copy should come out first. So taking every
So sorry to cut you short there. Hopefully you still remember, but yeah, you must be a very deep thinker because was it 2 weeks ago or something? We're at the mall in Calgary, and my wife was like, we're all in a hurry. She needed to go for a spa, which was like an appointment. And he said, "Oh, I want this uh juice or something like this, like puree or something like that." Sorry, not puree, a smoothie or something. And the queue was so long. I was taking the time, and we had these guys moving up and down, and that happened. Like, the guy's receipts came out first. So what I've decided to do, Oliver, is it's okay. I don't need the receipts. We gotta go. Yeah. But you're right. You're right. That's little thing. It's
Yeah.
really, really key. Yeah. Go on.
So we had absorbed the strategy from the client and what their specific goals from the event are. There is taking, a very detailed, guest-centric approach to every aspect of that event.
Mhm.
And then the final part, the final key for success, as I see it, is empowering the various members of the team on the day to provide an exceptional experience. And this is particularly complex at times. The nature of the event's game is that you're often working with people for the first time on that day. So they're from, an ability to absorb the strategic input from your clients, to assess the event plan from the standpoint of your guests. You then need to be able to communicate with often a very large team of people in
Yeah.
order to get them fired up, to set them up for success in terms of delivering an exceptional, memorable, and hopefully long-term profitable experience for the people who arrive.
Yeah, that's an important point because I used to be in the client side for 7 years. I've been in the marketing space about 14. And yeah, when you're in the client side, it was finance. There were just a lot of events. And even for those that know each other, it's still not perfect. Like, oh, did you not bring this? Did you bring that? And we've gone over the brief weeks before, let alone people that you don't know. So I think it's just important to take into consideration some of those elements. And like I said, yeah, it's a lot of work. Event marketing, it's a lot of work. And yeah, I just remember some of those days. I was really junior then, so I would carry everything, do everything. Sometimes the photographer is not around, or there are not many photographers around. Hey, dog, take some photos. And then I do the repurposing too, which is what I did most of the time. So it's a very interesting one, and glad to see that now fully back to its pre-pandemic levels. Oliver, I know we can go on and on, but some great wisdom you've shared. On the funny side, the biggest learning, of course, is that receipt thing. It's the little detail, basically.
Yeah.
So thank you
Hiding in
so.
plain sight.
I'm telling you, I noticed. Some people may not notice, but no, I notice this. It's always in my head, and yeah, you go. It's all about the detail. I'm not like a perfectionist detail person, but and which is why I guess when you're marketing, if you something comes to your mind, see if you can act on it and maybe check with a few people just to really help the client. It's okay if you forget, but if you remember or if it came to mind and you ignored it, then you might be losing your revenue to someone else because it's capitalism, as we'll put it. Um, awesome one. I will definitely continue to stalk you after this, but our listeners, where can they stalk you more and learn all these things that you've shared and even more?
Everyone can come and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there as Oliver JP Osborne. And yeah, look forward to chatting.
Yeah, absolutely. You got like any resources or it's just the LinkedIn?
You can go to ocool.ca and I have some resources you can download from the website. In addition, I tend to deliver resources through the content that I post on LinkedIn. These are often kind of frameworks, diagrams. I recently gave a guest lecture at University of Toronto, and over the course of the next few weeks, I will be dropping in some key slides from that presentation and explaining the genesis of those ideas.
Yeah, awesome. That's really awesome. Guys, this is how we do it on the Marketing Leadership Podcast. It is that virtual event that you must not miss. So please make sure to go to my website, .lovesmarketing.com, to enjoy all of the other episodes we have from you, from great guests. We've done a lot of work in getting you A-listers like Oliver. So there's that. Then there's also your favorite podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify, whether it's YouTube. Just search Marketing Leadership, and hopefully you should find my face somewhere in there smiling for the cameras. I would like to thank Content Allies, Desk Rig, and also ListenNetwork.co for their support. Till the next episode, connect the dots.